You are listening to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience.
So our second topic, we're going to be covering the California Association of Realtors housing report for March 2019. So right now we've had price growth of about 0.19%. There's 56,000 active listings, which is up 18% from a year ago, which was 47,000. But it's very interesting to see these statistics and these numbers. So with the interest rates dropping from 5.2 in December down to 4.0 in January, it was not a surprise to see an uptick of the month-over-month sales from January to February, which went up about 11%, if I'm correct. Yeah, it went up 11% from January to February, and then just a slight increase from February to March. Not that...
And again, to kind of put things in perspective for the audience, you've heard us talk about how there's a recession coming. And again, from my perspective, I think this recession that's coming will be a minor one that'll probably last 18 to 24 months. It will not be a major one. It's just primarily a market correction that you typically see, especially in California, within these 6 to 7 year cycles. Now, what's interesting about this particular report is that it shows a 6% drop in sales, right? And the main reason that
now, that's year over year.
Yeah, that's year over year. The main reason I argue that is because of the fact that it's year over year. Because the big question is well, in February there was an uptick in the amount of sales, which we believe and attribute to the fact that the interest rates dropped. They kept them low. Whereas when you look at it overall, it's still a 6% negative. And when I was looking at this statistic, I went back, 12 months back, and you arrive at right around May 2018, just about the time when you saw a big correction in the market where properties were staying on the market a lot longer. You didn't have multiple offers above asking. You'd have multiple offers below asking, and then you try to pick the highest one that got as close to the asking price as possible. And right about just a few months beyond May, you'd see owners accepting offers below asking in certain areas. And so those negative months where you had a decline in sales from May 2018 to present, I believe, are attributing to the fact that you see a overall 6% negative.
Yeah, and my takeaway from this is that you have, if you look year over year, you've got an increase in listings, you've got the number of sales decreasing, even with the bump in sales the last few months from the lowering of interest rates and that whole inverted yield curve that we talked about a couple of episodes ago. Even with that, you're still declining in sales. I think what we're seeing right now in the big picture is a slowing down of the housing market. There's a lot of things happening in the economy that, even though we have very low unemployment, we have still pretty good GDP. However, the GDP growth is slowing down, and it's expected to slow down in 2019, expected to slow down even further in 2020. And so when you're looking at all this from the entire from the whole macro perspective, you start noticing that we are going through a slowdown right now. Again, we're not predicting a crash like 2008 or anything of that nature, but we are seeing a slowdown in the housing market.
Yeah, and keep in mind all of these various reasons that we're throwing out. Nobody really knows what the cause of the downturn will be until, unless you're beyond it or you see what the actual reasons were in hindsight. So that all said, just from my own experience, I always see these 6 to 7 year cycles. I thought that, right about this time when we hit the 6th or 7th year of a big upcycle from 2012, right? So property values were beginning to go back up from 2012 to 2008, going backwards, marking that Great Recession period. Right about the 6th or 7th year, you always hit a plateau. You never actually know the reason why. I can go back and quote exact various reasons why from prior years, whether it was the S&L crisis or the mortgage meltdown. So in this particular case, this market is what people are coining the random market, which we've talked about in other shows, because you have these slowdowns, multiple offers below asking, and in some areas they're still staying pretty stable. Overall, despite the fact that overall the economy is still doing very well.
Yeah, and we can see even the median price for the state March of 2018 was 564,000, and it's 565,000 for March of 2019. So it was just up 0.2%. So I think the overall appreciation that we've seen historically the last 7 years, you're not going to see that much anymore. You're going to see prices really plateau right now, hit the peak, and you're going to start seeing prices probably decline end of this year, early next year. Again, the decline we're talking about still single-digit percentage points. We're not talking about 40% like in some areas what happened in 2008. So even though it's not the best news, it's also still pretty positive.